Hello everybody, my name is Ebon Ethos, and welcome back to Warframe in a Nutshell. Today we're going to be talking about another one of my personal favorite Warframes that I found myself enjoying. And this one's Wisp. If you were not present for my last video, obviously, I made a brief apology for not being present, uploading videos, doing live streams for the last 10 months or so. Again, not really sorry about it because my little daughter has taken up a lot of time. So, life comes first. So, since then, 3 Warframes have come out. Healdron, which was after Baruch, Wisp, that came after Healdron, Goss, that came after Wisp, and actually, there's 4, and Grendel, that's come after Goss. Now, Wisp is a good frame, and here's her base stats if you're really curious. She has one of the highest sprint speeds in the game to start off with. She has good armor, decent health, decent energy, and decent shield. Granted, this is all at rank 30. And as you can see, I've done a little bit of modification to her. I'm actually going to remove these arcanes because they can be a little bit troublesome too sometimes. So this is Wisp at her base level. We're going to go ahead and showcase her abilities against level 30 enemies. You might notice some leftover remains from my last video that I did because I'm doing these sequentially, just so I don't forget and make mistakes. So, what we got here is we got Wisp. Now, one thing you might know, or notice, when Wisp is jumping around in the air, she's leaving these little particles behind her. Some people have like, what is that? Well, these particles, and I'm going to kill myself again, whee! These particles are her turning invisible. See, her passive is, as long as she remains in the air, she becomes invisible to enemies. So she's a very, very handy Warframe to go into stealth missions, just kind of have to do this bunny hop. Because if you watch, as long as you're pretty quick about your jumps, you can actually stay invisible the entire time you're in a mission, just by doing bunny hops. And being invisible doesn't mean people can't hit you with guns, but it does mean that enemies won't be able to see you ever. And if you're really fast with your guns, while you're in the air doing some of this, you can actually go ahead and take out entire rooms of enemies without having to worry. Personally, the greatest passive on a Warframe I've ever had to deal with. Besides, Hydron and his tentacles. So, you might notice off to the bottom here, you might notice these 3 things, symbols, or what are those? You get them unlocked as Wisp levels up, of course, but her first one being the Mote of Vitality. The Mote of Vitality has a decent range, as you can see, and at this first level, it actually gives me 30 seconds of time. But when I go back into it, it restores that time. Now, if you're paying attention, it basically gave me 300 health. And so what's the 30? Well, the 30 is health regeneration per second. So, the Vitality Mote gives me 300 health, and 30 health per second it regenerates. That's pretty ridiculous. The Haste Mote, which I'll show you next, gives me 20% speed multiplier and a 30% fire rate. And Shock Mote gives me a 100% status chance for shock damage, and then 50-meter range and up to 5 targets. I don't think the targets, if I remember correctly, can be increased, but they do get an increased range as you go higher with range. So one of the cool things about this is you can have up to 6 of these reservoirs of any combination at a time. So we're going to do the static core here. You can see the charge up and the release. So we're going to go ahead and tap the first ability, and then press and hold it to release my reservoir. So now, standing between these two, I have infinite symbols. But leaving them, of course, I have my timers. Well, the cool thing is these reservoirs themselves have no durations, which means they basically are permanent things that she can just sit there and permanently buff people if they just wander in and out of her reservoirs whenever they get low. Now, remember, you saw my time to charge up, right? Oops, a little close. So now with that increased speed and the increased fire rate, my fire rate is much higher. You might also know that my move speed's a little bit faster. Look at that. Look at that speed. So why is that useful? Well, move speed. The speed multiplier is not just for your move speed. It also affects your melee attacks. If anyone who's played a lot of Volt knows, yeah, I should have mentioned this pole arm's a little broken. Anyways, anyone who's played Volt knows that when you use Volt speed, you get this really cool effect where all of a sudden your attacks are so much faster. Same thing with Valkyrie's Warcry. That's why a lot of people run with it. Now, we'll have to respawn our enemies here. Ba-doop. And then by that time my buffs will wear off. We'll get close to them. Now, her second ability, we're going to play with a little bit here. So once again, that, and then as you can see, my attack speed is much slower. Now, in order to accurately show her second ability, we have to be kind of high up. And we kind of have to have some good lines of sight. And I'll show you why. So her second ability, I'll explain those in a second here. Her second ability allows her to tap to create a clone of herself, and while it's moving, she's invisible. Now, if you notice, there's a time duration on it. That's how long it's going to be out. But one of the cool things is you can tap this ability, right? And then tap it again before its duration is up, and teleport to where that clone is. It can be very, very useful for moving around battlefields. As you can notice, with no energy modifier, she already has 300 energy. That's pretty hard. So, the Wisp is a pretty useful effect. Now, to explain these little reticles that you see popping up whenever I'm facing towards one of my reservoirs, this is a strange combination ability that most people don't realize that they have. But Wisp can focus on one of her reservoirs and press her third ability, which I will show you what it does right now. So, first of all, second ability, it has a drain when you cast it, a duration while it's going, and a time invulnerable. That is kind of the time that you're invulnerable when you swap. Just as a point. Now, Breach Surge normally releases this kind of these sparks of energy that will attach themselves to enemies, and when you hit that enemy, it will make that spark deal them damage and smack another enemy. Now, you read the second part of this ability, Wisp may target a reservoir to teleport to it and double the range of the surge. So normally the radius is 18 meters. If I target a reservoir, it goes up to 32. The blind duration is 16 seconds, damage multiplier is 2, and its status chance is 20%, which means there's a 20% chance enemies will have that spark applied to them. So, we're going to go ahead and boom! Look at that. Now they all have it, right? As you can see, those little sparks can deal a ton of damage, and the damage is dependent on how much damage they are dealing out. So, you're dealing to them. So if I deal 160,000 damage, those sparks are going to deal almost 160,000 damage. So they are really, really strong. But it depends on what you're hitting them with. Simulate some more. Oops. See, as you can see, normal stretch is not that far, but bloop. Now, if I pull out my Ignis Wraith, see? Bloop, 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 bloop. As you can see, they're not doing a whole lot of damage with just the fire that I get off the Ignis Wraith. And that's because, although my Ignis Wraith is built for some crazy damage, it requires constant application. And beyond that, the damage that it's actually doing is small, which is slash damage, which goes to their health, through their shields into their health. Now, the fourth ability is a bit weird. So, in order to really see its power, I'm going to drop another reservoir over here in a minute. So, I'm going to let my two reservoirs fade out. And I'm going to showcase what this ability, the fourth ability, can do. It drains energy fairly quickly, and it's okay. So, yeah, it opens a portal to the sun. The way this ability works is described. It opens a portal to the sun to irradiate enemies with a devastating beam of pure solar plasma. Hold fire to double the damage at the cost of increased energy consumption. For the duration of an attack, enemies damaged by Soulgate are increasingly more vulnerable to it. Yes, that means the longer you hold it onto an enemy, the more damage they take. It starts out at 1500 damage, fire and radiation, as a dual element. The range of 40 meters. Now, as an interesting point, if you apply all 3 motes, besides stunning people, your Soul Gate actually does increased damage. And as you can see, my reservoirs actually spin around the portal. So one of the few things known is by doing all 3 of the reservoirs, you actually increase the damage and you convert a portion of it into corrosive. So if you watch, it's doing radiation and corrosive and fire now. And some electric as well. That was me just getting too close. So Wisp can do some pretty serious damage with her 4th ability, but as you can tell, it drains a ton of energy. And the worst part is, it does not scale well. So we're going to go up to our 155 enemies. For those people who watch other videos, you can definitely tell that Heal Drawn did a great job against them. Oops, I want to... No! Let me teleport. Bloop! Okay, we're going to do that. They're taking 1 damage, right? I'm going to focus this on them. And as you can see, with the sparks going and with these goings, it's doing absolute bupkis. I can increase that damage and really start to hammer out, but look at my energy drain. It took me 300 energy just to kill 8 enemies. It's not an efficient measure. But, if I wanted to use my actual weapons to do this, once again, I'll spark them up. Not even a single clip in my Ignis Wraith completely dissolves those enemies. And that's one of the unifying principles of why I use this particular build in my Ignis Wraith. It's super darn strong. But the point I'm trying to make is, Wisp's abilities do not need to deal damage for them to be good. In fact, it doesn't really matter if her abilities do damage. She's supportive to her other weapons, whether they be her melee weapon, whether they be her primary or her secondary, or even pets in some cases. So, I have 2 ways of building Wisp, raw power and balance. Now, with an economy build on Wisp, we're looking at things like probably Energy Siphon, actually, or Corrosive Projection, depending on what you're doing. I have more mod slots in there than you normally do, but, I mean, your basic Intensify and Continuity. Probably throw yourself on some Flow, if you have Flow. Probably a darn good idea. Just have some extra energy capacity, stretch for that extra there. Duration, not super necessary, since you're not really using all of your consumable abilities, so just give yourself some more range. And in Vizarin, it kind of comes up to what you want to kind of play with. I would particularly recommend Vitality. Because as it stands, you have a decent amount, you have an okay health pool, and you're going to get even more health from having Power Strength. And so that's what I would kind of roll with there. And obviously, you have a little bit more. You can also throw yourself on some Redirection if you want. And then just whatever other thing you want to throw into this slot. I have more mod capacity because of my polarizations. I do not know what all is in total that you'd be able to put on there with at 0 Forma. Well, but an economy build is something kind of like this. Maybe throw on Hunter Adrenaline if you have that, or some other form of power increaser. I think it's kind of weird that almost all the Matter Eyes are all gold, all rare golds. Beside the point, this is an economy build for her. It allows her to deal a decent amount of damage, and I'm about to show. You have a decent amount of range on your reservoirs. As you can see, they're pretty darn big. Look at that. Looking at her abilities and how they change. So you go from having like 15 meters range in your shock mode to having nearly 30. Your speed and your fire rate and modifiers go up. Your maximum health goes to 390 and 39 health. The radius on all of them is nearly 10 meters, and you have a 39-second duration on the buff. The Will-O-Wisp has a 5-second duration. The Breach Surge has a 2.6 times multiplier rather than a 2, a 26 chance status chance, blind duration of 20 seconds. And her Soul Gate does more damage and has 70 meter range, because why do you need more range, right? But, as you can see, that's an economy build. This is the bare bones kind of whatever would work basic. And of course, then you also have 600 energy capacity, which is fantastic. Now, if you want to see the full power build, which is this one at 345%. And if I had Umbra Forma, I would use them on her just so I could have that capacity go up a bit so I can maximize out these mods. Now, as you noticed, in my raw power build, I actually have adaptation rather than anything else. And here's why. Adaptation, for those people who don't know, can give you up to a 90% damage reduction to a specific damage type. At this point, to kind of give you an idea, my Vitality Reservoir gives me 1,030 health and 103 health per second. Not much can hurt you at that point. I mean, I will go ahead and show you level 100s that are not paused. So I'll go ahead and drop this, and I'll drop this, and I'll drop this. See, look at this. Look at this. Come on, boils. You're not immortal, but it's really frickin' hard to kill you. By the point that they're doing enough damage to really make your life a misery, you should have them dead. One way or another. I heard gunfire. There it is. I'm gonna show you I'm gonna show you how cool this is. Again, remember how slow this weapon was beforehand? Now look at it. It's really frickin' fast. Now, if I wanted to go ahead and boop, and then teleport down there. Boop. Look at that. Fully restored, fully recovered. Shock Mote does most of my CC for me without any issue. I had a 90% damage reduction to slash. I was just kicking butt. And that's the problem. Wisp is primarily a supportive frame. She does a fantastic job being supportive. Again, that incredible amount of speed to her melee weapons, her fire rate increases, the health buffs, the health regeneration, all good. Now some of you going, hold on, we want to see what happens with Soul Gate. Okay, I'll show you what happens with Soul Gate. Look at that. I didn't have to use more energy, but I did. And to be frank, my weapons are stronger. Just being buffed, the weapons are so much stronger than her fourth ability ever could reach. So that's Wisp in a nutshell. I personally believe that Wisp should have as much power strength on her as you can possibly manage. The only reason why you need to have efficiency at all is if you're having problems with your energy being cut down. In some sorties, you have that. But otherwise, you should have the most amount of frickin' energy, power strength as you could possibly handle. Why? Because you don't need anything else. And the only reason why I have Prime Continuity on here is to actually increase the amount of my duration, so I don't have to worry about that too much. But I took this off at a 75% power duration. Is that a big problem? Honestly, not much. I mean, it gives me a 22.5 second duration buff. Is that a bad thing? No. The blind duration is the only reason why I want to have it a little bit longer. But beyond that, I could throw on more power strength that was available, like energy conversion, and make it even more dumb. The problem is, of course, I do have a capacity to worry about. But I could possibly throw in more power, Giving myself energy conversion would make my reservoirs even freaking stronger. So, something to keep in mind for the future, at least to me, is that Wisp is just all about that power strength, baby. A little bit of range, all about power strength. That's all she needs. Because the higher she can get those health buffs, those health regenerations, the speed, and the fire rate buffs, the less she needs to care about anything else. So, I hope you guys have... Oh, can't talk today. I hope everybody's enjoyed this video. In a nutshell, how to play Wisp, what she does. Some of you might be going, you know, you never really told us where to find her, and you have in the past told us where to find the different warframes. Okay. Wisp can be found in the Rhapallopolis fight, which is on Saturn. Jupiter? It's on Jupiter. Sorry, it's on Jupiter in the Gas City. There's literally a node for it. You can't miss it. And you just fight that boss until you get all of her parts. A bit like all the other bosses, except for there's some weird mechanics with it. And I will probably get into that with the boss frame at some point. How to fight the Rhapallopolis with, not screw up or have bugs happen to you. And it's just building her that way and then going ahead to the marketplace and getting her blueprint. It's that simple to get Wisp. As for Healdron, you have to get her parts from a giant spider in the Orb Valis, and it's a pain in the butt. But we won't go there. So, I hope you guys have all liked this video. If you have, hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more In a Nutshell or any Warframe videos. If you have a comment about the video, please leave it in the comment section. And until next time, I hope you guys have all enjoyed watching. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Bye, everybody.